Hi everyone, Lawrence here again with another fantastic episode of the 2025 Consul series, part of the Global Trade Show here on Import Export TV. I've got the absolute pleasure now of being joined by the Honorary Consul for the Philippines here in Adelaide, Carmen. Carmen, thank you so much for joining me today on the episode.
Thanks, Lawrence, and welcome to Ghana country.
Love it, thank you. So, Carmen, please introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about your background.
So I'm Carmen Garcia. My mum is a Filipino migrant, so I was born here in Australia, but raised very much by my Lola and Lolo, who are Filipino.
Lovely.
So I speak the language, very committed to my culture. And as the Honorary Consul, I have a strong role to play in community engagement, supporting Filipino nationals and consular services. In fact, Mum was a former lawyer in the Philippines and Australia, so I brought her out of retirement to help manage those consular services. Because what I'm really passionate about is the economic diplomacy. And even with international students, since my appointment, we've initiated welcome sessions just to really bring community together and build that social capital when they arrive in a new country or state like South Australia.
Yeah, lovely. I know that we're just talking off camera before, the proactiveness that you have and the passion that you have is just so evident. So yeah, I think you've got so much to offer. Obviously the Australian community and that being that conduit between the Philippines over here in South Australia as well.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Honorary consuls, I think, I report into Melbourne Consul General, but work closely with the embassy. And I see my role, I guess, as initiating, leading, facilitating, and really promoting the opportunities in the Philippines. I think people forget that we are the 5th largest community in Australia, and we're quiet achievers. Yeah. So sometimes they don't realise there's a lot happening in the Philippines.
Absolutely, yeah. Carmen, tell us about some of the key industries that, you're as you said, you're really hands-on with trying to develop those economic and trade opportunities over here. Tell us about some of the key industries you see as current and emerging.
Well, there's so many industries, Lawrence, but I guess that first of all, just to help contextualise and set the scene, the Philippines is now the 10th fastest growing economy in the world and one of the fastest growing in Asia. And in fact, HSBC have predicted that will be the 16th largest economy by 2050. So there is a lot happening. It's time to get on board. And I think there's some really great alignment. We've got a $180 billion infrastructure project, and that's really helped to accelerate our capability and skills in the Philippines. Coupled with leading edge technology, AI, and then obviously, as I said to you before, Lawrence, our best asset in the Philippines are our people.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that I've been lucky enough to go to the Philippines, and the warmth, the embracement of the people there is wonderful. I think there's so many shared values between Australia and the Philippines as well. Yeah. And from a business perspective, they've got such strong communication skills. They've got so well educated to really help Australian businesses grow, whether they're there in the Philippines or coming through here as well.
Yeah, and it's all of that collective infrastructure, workforce and capability that does actually make the Philippines so competitive in keeping business costs down, in operating. So, key industries or businesses that are interested in areas like renewable energy, we've got a lot of specialisation now in hydrogen and electric vehicles. Technology is so broad, Lawrence, like everything comes under it. So, from digital health to, smart high-tech light manufacturing services, ag tech, all of those kind of semiconductor electronics, all of that's happening in the Philippines. We've obviously always had our, very well-regarded telecommunications infrastructure, but really moving into optimal business services as well. So business process management is a really big emerging industry. And obviously my passion is very much around education skills and tourism.
Fantastic. And it is a beautiful country. So lots of tourism opportunities there as well. Carmen, let's talk about how Philippines is strategically located for Australia to consider as well, not just as that single country, but as a springboard right across the region.
Yeah, Lawrence, I must say geography is not my strong suit, but we do know that the central location of the Philippines is a real crossroads between the Pacific Ocean and the South China Sea. So that really does make it a gateway for trade and connecting Asia to the rest of the world. I think the other key component for investors and business to think about is the Philippines freight and logistics. And I know you know a lot about this, a lot more than me, but that role is so important when you're really looking at getting your goods out in the market. And, I guess our infrastructure encompasses different sectors from transport to warehousing, logistics, packaging, and we have some 400 economic zones in the Philippines, nearly 300 ports and 85 airports.
Yeah.
The numbers keep changing, so don't quote me on that.
No,
But,
right, yeah.
you know, I guess there is a real commitment in the role that the Philippines can play. We have an investment in, you know, adding value and unifying through all means, whether it's people-to-people links, transport infrastructure, or, you know, some of our, you know, what do they call them, storage units and data. Like we want to offer it all. We want to be responsive. And one of the interesting things about the Philippines and our workforce is that our wage rates are very stable and our median age is actually 25. It's the youngest in the world.
Young population.
So, you know, they know AI better than all of us. Well, my age anyway. So, but there is a real drive, and I think that's kind of really exciting. And I have to share this with you because I'm super proud. Last year, mid-year, in about, you know, winter, Adelaide got their first shipment of fresh mangoes.
Oh, yum. Fantastic.
So that were coming out of the orchards in Zambales. And we had a local business owner here called Philippine World Trading who really facilitated that. So I think there is great appetite. Navigating it, that's where they're going to need your help, Lawrence.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, Carmen. I think so many big logistics companies, they go to the Philippines and they actually fine-tune a lot of their processes, their SOPs, all those type of things, because they want to roll that out globally as well. And the Philippines is a really great way to bed in some new technology across logistics, supply chain, warehousing. Those data centres you mentioned are really taking hold right across the region. So it is a real powerhouse.
Yeah.
Great. So I know that, and Philippines are always proactive in encouraging bilateral trade. You know, we've got a wonderful range of trade history between Australia and the Philippines already. But are there any current or new initiatives taking place for the Philippines to attract trade and investment?
There's definitely been some recent improvements, particularly around taxation, foreign investment, and that kind of trade liberalisation to really facilitate engagement. But I think what's important is our government is listening.
Yeah.
You know, we want business to come to the Philippines. We want to make it happen in the Philippines. So we're really open to those conversations, and I think that's a key part. As you may have heard last year, the Prime Minister of Australia and our President in the Philippines actually elevated our relationship to a strategic partnership. And that's really, I guess, opened up the doors. We already have free trade agreements, but what was really important is having an action plan. Like we have a plan, we have targets. I'm a planner, I like KPIs. But underpinning that is, we all agree, raising awareness. So the opportunity like today is just amazing, just to raise awareness of that synergy and reciprocal benefit between Australia and the Philippines, I think is important. We want to remove those barriers and blockages and build that ecosystem for investors, and I think that's where the work you do is so amazing. It's really challenging, and particularly in Adelaide, we have a SME engine room, you know, but that doesn't mean we're not ambitious. I'm a small business owner and I'm very ambitious for what we can achieve, but we need those connectors and facilitators, and that trade and investment space is very complicated, especially when you're looking at two different countries. So building that capability and then also making sure that we really deepen the investment, not just from a financial, but that social and cultural element as well, I think is really important.
So well said. Thank you, Carmen. I think that, as you mentioned there, the relationship between Australia and Philippines from a cultural level as well is so warm. Everyone enjoys working together, and you have such a beautiful culture here that people really embrace in Australia.
And you know, one thing I have to add just really quickly. So as I said, I'm half Australian, and that's where I say my outgoing and direct nature comes from, not the Filipino side. But because we are quiet achievers, a lot of people think Filipinos are just food and festivals. And as amazing as they are, we have skills, we have ideas. The work we're doing in animation is blowing people away. People have won awards on Hollywood movies that I can't even mention because there's so many. But there's some real innovation because we're hungry to do more and to learn more and be that leading edge. So it's exciting in the Philippines.
I was lucky enough to go through Manila Fame last year, and the creativity, the designs, and a lot of the cultural work that's coming out of those Indigenous zones as well is so gorgeous. It's beautiful. There's such a big push of sustainability taking place in the Philippines. They're leading the region really in many ways about how they can do business sustainably, how they can help create a whole range of new opportunities out of recycling, new type of product designs. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. In fact, one of the key highlights out of Adelaide is we have depth mould manufacturing in the Philippines, which is one of the largest companies. So if you think about those Uber Eats bags, they're made in the Philippines.
Oh, lovely.
But they're so innovative around how they're reusing or, that circular economy approach to recycling, upcycling, and just, giving things multiple life. So there are some exciting things like that happening. But we also have a great example of a local company here called Fragile to Agile. They're around enterprise business architecture and digital transformation. They're working with some of the biggest companies in the Philippines. And, there's that reciprocal commitment of not just, doing business, but investing in that upskill with people in the Philippines. So I really see there to be a big benefit. We're not as big as Melbourne in terms of our population. There's about 26,000 Filipinos here. So, that's why I'm ringing the bell. But I think one of the key things that we do have in the Filipino community is the Australian Philippine Business Council. And those chambers and councils play such a critical role. I really have to shout out to APBC because, they're hosting a delegation here in Adelaide in a couple of weeks. I think they're popping into Melbourne too, actually, around ag tech and innovation. The Undersecretary from the Philippines is coming, and I think it just shows that, the ESG commitment, environment is on the agenda. Both Australia and the Philippines have such rich biodiversity and natural resources, not to even mention our coral reefs, but there is a real commitment to that. So I think that's been great to see from the ESG perspective. I have, a real commitment to the mobility of people. And I think, in the current discourse, it's just really important to acknowledge that we're lucky to have leadership here in Australia, that they recognise the fundamental importance of building social cohesion and communities and facilitating certainty for businesses. Like, we need skills.
Absolutely.
If we don't know what migration policy we got tomorrow, it makes it very, very challenging for businesses to make decisions. So I think that's where there's a real advantage. I definitely know a lot of Filipino workers come here and we welcome them because the employers engage with us. They connect the new workers to me and my office. So I think that says a lot around, our commitment to society. And I always say to businesses, Lawrence, you can take this one. When you think of ESG, the word social can often be a deterrent around, it's charity, we've got to do a good thing. Well, I argue doing good is good for business, but I say to my partners in corporate, don't forget social, think society.
Yeah, that's true.
What's more important than your customers and your staff? And it automatically will elevate ESG, and that's where I think there's great alignment because we value our people as our most precious resources here in Australia and back home in the Philippines.
Yeah, beautifully said. I think that's so true. I think companies do get daunted by the social side, the S part of the ESG, but no, I might sort of, I'll give you plenty of credit every time.
That's right.
So, thanks, Carmen. No, it's been wonderful, and I was going to ask about some case studies, but you've already covered a couple of those with the Uber Eats bags and mangoes. I know there's a lot of whole new things coming up here for South Australia that we're looking forward to next year. Can't mention anything, but there's some cool stuff happening. But yeah, look, I'm really inspired by your passion, your energy, Carmen. So it's great to see what you're doing here in South Australia. How can people watching this, and whether they're in South Australia or Philippines or any part of the world or Australia, what advice would you give them how best to do business with opportunities in the Philippines?
Well, there's so many opportunities. I do have to highlight one more exciting thing, that in June of 2024, the Philippines were actually a signatory to the Washington Accord. And that means the tertiary qualified Filipino engineers are now going to be able to help facilitate that mobility. We know in Australia, we have an abundance of infrastructure projects. We're going to need that talent. So I think, whether it's skills, the movement of goods or services, partnerships are key. Everyone talks about partnerships and collaboration, and sometimes the word gets lost in translation. I think it's really about finding those allies, knowing people that have gone before you that will build that ecosystem, and we strengthen our supply chain in that way as well, where everyone really can win if we do this right. And really, I think that the biggest thing for me is community and corporate is so connected in Filipino culture that making sure that the economic advancement is also bringing our culture. We are still a developing nation. We won't be for long, that's the plan.
Yeah, exactly.
But understanding the importance of family and culture and people, I think, is kind of what we've forgotten a little bit after the post-pandemic. So reconnecting with people and those people-to-people links are going to be absolutely critical. So it is, we like to eat and meet, that, you know, in the Philippines.
Absolutely.
That's definitely a suggestion for anyone out there. You know, invite, you know, yourself, the APBC leaders in the community, have a coffee, have a chat, and you'll find there's some really exciting synergies. Now is the time, because we're thriving in the Philippines for sure.
Really well said. I think that you mentioned this before. The youth and the energy coming out of the Philippines is just phenomenal. That sort of that whole new demographic who've got technology, they've got hunger, they've got so much strong ambition and skills. That it's just, when you land, you feel this whole wave of optimism. It's phenomenal.
Yes, I definitely think one of the things I took away from my Filipino culture getting raised up, and why I'm not doing too bad in business myself, Lawrence, is it's never a no, it's just not now.
Yeah. I love it. Well, Carmen, I want to let's give your business a bit of a plug as well, because you're an honorary consul. You do all this for love, essentially. You know, and you can see it just oozes out of you all this, you know, real passion and love for doing helping both countries connect. So, but let's talk about your business as well. What do you do there?
So Community Corporate, we're a certified social enterprise. So basically we're a business, but we're driven to deliver social good. And our focus is around migrant recruitment. And that means, you know, really being able to unleash this human talent, primarily onshore already here in Australia, and connecting them to employers, helping employers navigate that migrant visa space, and just building cultural safety and confidence in workplaces. You know, for a lot of Filipinos, particularly in the health sector, they're often sent into regional areas, which is great, and they're happy to do it. But when they're disconnected from community, or, you know, just even places of worship, it does make it challenging. So that's a big part of what my company plays, from end to end, very much employer-led. So like a recruitment agency, but maybe with a social conscience.
No, and you're right. I think the emerging gap that we've got here in Australia with healthcare, aged care, Philippines are perfectly suited to fit those type of opportunities here in Australia, but they are such a family-driven, community-driven people, so they need to be connected.
Absolutely.
So what you do there is so important.
And I'm really proud of the South Australian State Government. Our Minister Zoe Bettison for Tourism and Multicultural Affairs has gone to the Philippines already. There's been a few delegations that have been supported. But next time you're in Adelaide, I'll hook you up with our Skills Commissioner. He recently went over, and he's looking at some innovative solutions where South Australia is going to lead the way over Melbourne. To really tap into the talent in the Philippines, but also, you know, offshore. And that's because they've got a strong commitment to multicultural communities and welcoming migrants into our state.
Fantastic. Well, Carmen, it's been an absolute delight to speak to you. Thank you. I love your energy, love your drive, and it's been a delight. I look forward to staying in touch and helping showcase all the work that you're doing over here in South Australia. Congratulations to you and the team, and I'm sure that the whole community, both Philippine community and the Australian community, appreciate what you do.
Thank you. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much.